Welcome to a Rotherham SENDIAS video around special educational needs SEND support in mainstream schools. All of the information you're going to hear from this presentation is from one of three places. The SEND Code of Practice 0 to 25, which is a statutory guidance, the SEND Regulations 2014, or the Children and Families Act. Before going into detail about the presentation, we first have to think about which children and young people we mean when we're talking about special educational needs or disability. First, your child has to be between the age of 0 to 25. When looking at whether a child or young person has SEN, there are two questions that need to be asked, and if both are answered yes, then your child or young person is defined in law as having special educational needs. The first question is, does your child have at least one of the following: a learning difficulty or a disability? For a child to have a learning difficulty, they have to have significantly greater difficulty in learning compared to the majority of others of the same age. For a child to have a disability, they have to have either a physical or mental impairment which has a substantial and long-term adverse effect on their ability to carry out day-to-day activities. The word substantial within that sentence means more than minor or trivial, and the term long-term means lasting more than a year or is likely to last more than a year. If you think your child has a disability, that disability also has to make it difficult for them to use the facilities normally provided for others of the same age in mainstream schools or colleges. If you answered yes to one of those points, then next you need to ask the question, does that learning difficulty or disability require special educational provisions be put in place for them? Special educational provision is any educational or training provision that's additional or different from that that's generally available to children and young people of the same age. If you answered no to one of those questions, then your child doesn't have special educational needs or a disability. However, if you answered yes, then they do have SEN. It may be that your child doesn't have special educational needs or a disability, but they have medical needs which impact on school. If this is the case, there is a link to a national guidance on the medical needs at the end of this video. Within the SEND Code of Practice, the term special educational needs or disability is broken up into four broad areas of need. These cover communication and interaction, cognition and learning, social, emotional and mental health difficulties, and sensory and/or physical needs. These areas of needs may be as a result of a diagnosed condition, or they may be without a diagnosis. Special educational needs provision, that is of course provision that is additional or different from what's provided for other children who don't have SEN, can be provided in two ways. The first way is by an early years provider or a school or a post-16 setting arranging the special educational provision from within its own resources. This is usually called the SEN support or the graduated approach. The second way is by the SEN provision being specified in an education, health and care plan, in which case there is a duty on the local authority to secure the SEN provisions in place. This video is going to focus on that first part, which is around SEN support and the graduated approach. Special educational provision can take place in different types. Here's some examples of what that might look like. It could be a special learning programme for your child, or extra help from a teacher or learning support assistant. It could be about making or changing materials and equipment, or working with your child in a small group. Observing your child in class or at break and keeping records. Helping your child to take part in the class activities if they struggle. Making sure your child has understood things by encouraging them to ask questions and try something new if they find it difficult. Helping other children to work with your child or play with them at break time. Supporting your child with physical or personal care, such as eating, getting around school safely, toileting or dressing. It could also be advice or extra help from specialists, such as specialist teachers, educational psychologists or different therapists. The SEND legislation and statutory guidance that we mentioned at the beginning of this video places some duties on schools. Every school is required to identify and address the SEN of the pupils that they support, and ensure that children and young people with SEN engage in the activities of the school alongside pupils who don't have SEN. When identifying special educational needs, the schools must have a clear approach. They have to have regular assessments of progress, and these should try to identify pupils making less than expected progress, given their age and individual circumstances. This can be considered as progress which is significantly slower than that of the peers starting from the same baseline, or progress that fails to match or better the child's previous rate of progress, or fails to close the attainment gap between your child and the peers. It could also be progress where you see that the gap is getting wider. Chapter 6 of the SEND Code of Practice 0 to 25 outlines how schools, colleges and settings address the special educational needs of children that they work with. This is called the graduated approach. You'll see on this slide here, it talks about a cycle of assess, plan, do and review. Schools and settings are assessing children's needs all the time. They can do this either formally or informally through observations. When looking at the assess, plan, do, review cycle, within the assess process, it's around school staff working together and drawing on each other's knowledge of that child. Assessments of pupil must look at things such as previous progress, attainment of that child, or things like behaviour. The assessment will also provide an analysis of need and help to identify the child's special educational needs or disability. As part of the graduated approach, the cycle of assess, plan, do and review, schools and settings can also involve specialists. Where a pupil continues to make less than expected progress, despite evidence-based support and interventions that are matched to the pupil's area of need, the school should consider involving specialists, including those secured by the school itself or from outside agencies. There might be specialist services, such as the Educational Psychology Service, Inclusion Services, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, or different therapists such as speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, or physiotherapists. You can find details of a lot of these different services on the Rotherham SEND local offer. You might want to be aware that some schools and settings use the different services from Rotherham Borough Council. However, some schools also choose to use private services, such as different educational psychologists, for example. This is also okay. Following the period of assessment, and the school identifying your child's special educational needs or disability, the school will then pull together a plan. At this point, there's a duty to inform parents and consult with parents around what the plan will consist of. There should be an agreement on adjustments or interventions and support that will be put in place, and agree the expected impact on progress and development or their behaviour. The plan should also have a clear date for a review. Schools and settings then need time to actually deliver the plan that they've pulled together. Communication with yourselves at this point is really important to ensure that you're aware of how things are going or if there's anything that's getting in the way of the plan being delivered. All SEN support plans need a review process. This should be done alongside you as a parent and also include your child's views and thoughts as well. The review should consider the effectiveness of the support and the impact on pupils' progress. There should be an opportunity to discuss the quality of support. For example, has something got in the way of providing the plan? Has a member of staff been off sick, or has your child been away from school for a period of time, for example? The review process should also help feed back into further assessment of pupils' needs. Has the support being put in place actually identified any further needs that need to be considered? The support should also be revised. Does it need tweaking or changing or adding to, or actually has the support being provided addressed the needs that it was trying to address? Recording the process of SEN provision and assess, plan, do and review. There's no longer one way to record SEN support. Lots of schools use different documents, such as an SEN support plan, individual education plan, provision map, or pupil profile. However this is recorded, information should be readily shared with you as a parent. Schools must also provide an annual report for parents on their child's progress. This can usually be done by a record of achievement at the end of a school year. Although your child's class teacher or form teacher or subject teachers are responsible for their day-to-day learning and providing education, there is also a member of the school staff called the Special Educational Needs Coordinator, or SENCO for short. This is a person within the school who is designated a teacher to be responsible for coordinating all the SEN provision that's put in place for individual children. The role of the SENCO includes overseeing the day-to-day operation of the school's SEN policy, coordinating SEN provision for their children who have special educational needs or a disability, advising on the graduated approach and providing SEN provision, and liaising with parents. The SENCO also liaises with different professionals from different external agencies and services and being a key point of contact for those services. They work with the head teacher and school governors to ensure that the school meets its responsibilities under the Equality Act with regards to reasonable adjustments and access arrangements for disabled students. The SENCO also ensures that the school keeps the records of all pupils with SEN up to date. Certain schools have a duty to have a special educational needs information report. The governing bodies of maintained schools and maintained nursery schools and the proprietors of academy schools must publish information on their websites about the implementation of the governing bodies or proprietors' policy for pupils with special educational needs or a disability. The information published should be updated annually, and any changes to the information occurring during the year should be updated as soon as possible. Schools should ensure that the information is easily accessible by young people and parents and is set out in clear, straightforward language. It would be useful for you as parents to be aware of the SEN information report for your schools as well as the SEN policy. Both of these should be on the school website. There is also a duty on schools to use their best endeavours to make sure that a child with SEN gets the support they need. This means doing everything they can to meet children and young people's special educational needs. This is really important to be aware of, as this can be helpful in your conversations with the SENCO if you're concerned that your child's needs aren't being met. So what do you do if you're worried that your child's needs aren't being met? Have open communication with the school. First speak with the class teacher or form teacher, but actually if it needs to step up, have a conversation with the school's SEN coordinator. Work together with the school and share information about your concerns, what you see at home, and ask for information about how your child is doing and presenting in school too. Some useful questions that you might want to ask are: do you feel my child has SEN? Is my child making progress? What SEN support is in place, and how can I support my child learning at home? We hope you found this information useful, but there are other sources of information that you might find helpful too. On the Rotherham SEND EAS YouTube channel, we also have a frequently asked questions about SEND support in mainstream schools that has some practical advice around what to do if you're concerned. There's also the Rotherham SEND EAS website on www.rotherhamsendeas.org.uk and the Rotherham SEND Local Offer website, which is www.rotherhamsendlocaloffer.org.uk. There's an additional website that Rotherham pulled together with the intention of supporting SENCOs in school to be aware of what the graduated approach might look like in their setting. But this is also incredibly helpful for families too, and you'll find that on www.sendcorotherham.co.uk. At the beginning of this video, I also talked about medical needs, that if they weren't considered to be SEN, that there was some guidance that you might find helpful, and the link to that guidance is also here on this slide.